No, we got some big news. Actually, this news is from yesterday. Heidi Hatch from KUTV's confirmed a Utah man involved in the protests. Involved in the protests in Utah this spring was in D.C. and stormed the Capitol amid violent protests. There's a man named John Sullivan, and he was arrested as a member of Black Lives Matter during the riots in spring. And apparently, he claims he was there just to document, but he was there as the woman was shot. So it looks like we do have confirmation of leftists, part of the protest that stormed the Capitol building. I brought this up, as a lot of people are saying, like Matt Gaetz said, there's a facial recognition company that found Antifa or something. I don't think that's true. I think they denied that. I don't know where he got that information from. But a lot of people are saying this was Antifa who did this. Well, there's not a whole lot of evidence, but we do have a guy now. We have him. This is what I was wondering. We were asking some questions the other day. Antifa always counter protests. They always show up. They announced they were going to show up. Where were they this time? And so I said this a few days before. Now that the Proud Boys and Trump supporters are mad at cops, what happens when Antifa says, okay, and they don't, okay, my enemy of my enemy is my friend, I guess. Is it possible that some of these people, at least? Well, we got this from Heidi Hatch of KUTV. I believe she's of KUTV. Yes, KUTV News, confirming this guy. He's listed as an organizer of the Provo protest, arrested, accused of rioting and making threats. And they even say in the KUTV story, or the woman, she says, he does not align with Donald Trump politically. So we have leftists that were inside the Capitol. At least we can say that much. I don't know what that means moving forward, but... And
that's what I think, why I always just say the term protesters. I mean, I know people always get mad, oh, it's a riot, or it's this, or it's that. I mean, I just think that's a generic term, as opposed to saying Antifa, BLM, rioters. You don't know just because they're wearing all black. They
Right.
could have come out there with good intentions. They're just a mom who, wanted to, her kid got beat up by the police, So you don't know just because they're wearing black or just because they're wearing a red hat. Oh, okay. Yeah, you support all the president's policies.
This is where I don't care for the tribalism. That when that dude in all black showed up to that was an AutoZone or whatever in Minneapolis, started smashing things out, immediately they said, this guy is far right. Like the left knew.
Or a cop.
Or a cop, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now we have the exact same thing when this goes down. They're saying it was Antifa who did this. And it's like, there may be. We got this guy, right? This was from yesterday. They're saying they confirmed it. But come on, man. There were people wearing Trump hats.
We'll get a lot more information as we see who does get arrested.
Right.
Because they do have facial recognition in there inside the Capitol.
Yep.
I don't know about
Well, we have a whole
Antifa,
track, trace, and database society with the NSA and FBI pretty much knowing everything about everyone through their cell phone. They could easily geolocate everyone. They don't need to put out these, these notifications like the FBI and the USA Today. They released saying, if you have any information, notify us, send us all your photos, send us all your tips, send us all the information. We're going to go after everyone that was inside of there. And again, we also, another important element to kind of really think about here, from my experience covering events, mob mentality is also something that people really need to consider, because yes, there are some bad actors, but there's also some people just caught up in the crowd. There's one famous photo, I just sent it to you, Lydia, of this like older lady with her juice box, literally just kind of like not knowing where she is inside of the Capitol. And
she was literally getting like walked down the steps by Capitol Police.
Yeah, Mike Cernovich had an interesting kind of comment about this. Let me try to find it here, because
what was he talking about?
He said, let's just say, this is after Donald Trump's announcement, he said, let's just say that the Trump campaign will not be creating a bail fund for his supporters. Lots of innocent people going to get caught up. I feel deep sadness for them. Some bad guys, sure, but droves always find themselves in the nest.
This is a really
a
common tactic we see among left-wing organizers. First thing I'll say is, I am not saying this as an attack outright on the left. I'm just pointing out the right is not organized. They're not. There's there's very little organization on the right. They don't go out in big marches.
It was not organized. This whole thing was poorly organized. I heard
no
it from
bail
a lot of
support, no
people.
masks, no plans, no strategy. Mm-hmm. But among the left, what they do is they know who their marks are. It's like body filler, essentially. They need a certain number of bodies as cover, and they want regular people to get arrested. So what we've seen in the past is you'll get like 10 extremist activists or extremists, and they'll set up an event that's palatable to 1,000 regular people who want to wave little flags and say, save the environment. Once they get that march going, they use that as cover to go and do some kind of action that results in a mass arrest. That way, when these 100 or 1,000 regular people are confused and getting arrested, you get a bunch of press. They want that to happen. Imagine if 10 people stormed the Capitol. Just 10. People would be like, oh, 10 people went in, I guess. Whatever. Were they arrested? Yeah, I guess. You know. It would have been really easy for the cops to handle it. So they know they need bodies. Unsuspecting, doting, individuals who have no idea what's going on, who see an open door and walk in confused, bewildered. And then the people who are pushing for this, who want it to happen, can get away with it. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying that it was on purpose here. I'm just saying what you end up seeing is often unsuspecting and bewildered people
it's a very
marching
real
in.
psychological phenomenon of like a mob mentality.
Yep.
Where if a couple people do it, that's all it takes. And I mean, you across the country.
You could even see from the footage too, because right when folks are in there, they're just like Richie said, they were taking selfies, smoking pot. So even for them, they were more shocked that they were even in there.
Yeah, exactly.
They were just kind of taking it in. They didn't know whether they were staging a sit-in or or occupying the Capitol building for several hours. They didn't even know. They were. I was watching that. A bunch of streamers just having fun, smoking pot. It was kind of it was kind of like, that's what I'm saying. This if that's Antifa, then I mean, yeah, I mean, wow, yeah. I don't think any Antifa is going to dress as undercover Trump supporters and then want to go to jail for 10 years to smoke a joint inside a Capitol
under a law that Trump put in place.
Yeah,
the idea that Antifa would take their mask off, put on a MAGA hat, take their mask off, put on a MAGA hat, and then walk in and be like, "I'm actually a Trump supporter. Here's my face." Like, they wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
But there were a lot of people wearing masks.
Mm-hmm.
I saw some of these people and I thought to myself, Trump supporters don't go around wearing masks like that. I've been to so many different Trump rallies. You got troublemakers that are not left wing, but there's also Boogaloo Boy types. They wear masks. So we don't necessarily know who these people were. Again, we do know one of these guys was a BLM activist from Utah who was there at the Capitol. Not surprised. We've seen those videos of Black Lives Matter and Boogaloo Boys shaking hands. You see that one?
Yeah.
The Antifa guy's like, you stood here with us today, so we thank you. It's like, and then the Boogaloo Boy says something like, hey, man, like, we agree the government's bad. And they're like, all right. Well, they agree. So they like to claim that Boogaloo Boys are somehow the same as Trump supporters. And it's just not true. It's not true. Trump supporters are very much like liberals, and not politically, of course, but in the sense that they like the country to a certain degree. Like they're okay with how this country functions. They're okay with it's basically like reform versus revolution. Mm-hmm. You've got extremists on both sides who want dramatic change, overhaul, and revolution. And then you've got the regular left and right wing individuals. I think the problem is the left in this country has moved so far left, but also has so much control now of institutions that regular Trump supporters who probably would be satisfied with winning an election are now feeling just totally cut out, period. Mm-hmm. And so you then start seeing, I think they're going to get taken advantage of. That anger they have now will be used by more extremist types, including Antifa, who was clearly there was a dude there from BLM.
Well, and we saw what happened in the very first rally. Basically, there were tons of footage of people in red hats walking through BLM Plaza. Similar situation, didn't realize what they were walking themselves into, with all like a mass of BLM folks in the plaza getting their butts beat. And then the next time around, the Proud Boys say, not this time. And they all travel from around the country by literally the thousands and show up ready to roll. And that time, I mean, I think there was a lot more of the aggression coming from the Proud Boys.
We've got some huge news. Betsy DeVos has resigned. Writing in a letter to the president, there is, quote, there is no mistaking the impact your rhetoric had on the situation. And it is the inflection point for me.
Oh, she was a staunch reporter, too. Staunch supporter of Trump.
And not only that, but she was, a lot of Trump. We have Jack Murphy on the show, and he talks about Democrat to deplorable. He wrote this book. He interviewed a lot of people. And one of the big issues was Title IX, right? Reform from these colleges, making sure due process was standing and these critical race theory was being challenged. And she was very much doing that. That's what, Trump brought her in for. Well, for one of the reasons, at least. Now she's out. I tell you, man, what happened at that Capitol, you know what, man? Look, there are a lot of people that don't want to listen to me. The left doesn't want to listen to me for sure. And many of them staunchest Trump supporters don't want to hear it. But when Lynn Wood snapped off, I said, this is bad. When Sidney Powell snapped off, this is bad. Tucker Carlson said, I called Sidney, said, where's the evidence? And she didn't give us any. And what happened? His ratings got cut in half. Mm-hmm. If you listened to Tucker, Trump would be in a better position right now. When I said Lynn Wood is tweeting like crazy and it is one of the most destructive things for the president, I had a bunch of just like ardent Trump supporting people say you're wrong. He knows what he's talking about. Like, no, dude, whether that's true or not doesn't matter. Okay, fine. I think he's off. I think he's gone nuts. I don't know what's going on with him, but he's delegitimizing the president. And so when all this goes down, you need to understand the impact that going into that Capitol had. It scared people. Nobody wants to be. It's just, what do you accomplish?
Exactly. I don't see what goal you would have where that's like a good way to get there.
People thought that, I guess, there's that video of that woman and she's crying and she's like, I went in and they maced me. And they're like, why did you go in? And she goes, we're storming the Capitol. It's a revolution. Like, what do you mean a revolution? You, a bunch of random people walking into the Capitol building is a revolution? Like, it's not.
You know what's kind of the saddest thing too that we should just take away is, Ashley, the Air Force veteran who died. I mean, she served our country. She served in wars only to die in the U.S. Capitol building.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a disgrace.
The people in this country are getting really mad, and I'm hearing people say that it's a reminder to the Republican Party or whatever that we're here and we're loud or whatever, and I'm like, the Republican Party just like does what the Democrats want them to do for the most part. They feign objection. They feign, we're going to fight back, and then they obstruct, and then nothing really happens. Like Lindsey Graham coming out and saying like, oh, that's it for me. I'm like, oh, come on. Like as if you were really ever doing anything for anybody. Come on. These politicians win because people go and vote for R or D, not a person, So what I've been warning for some time is you got a lot of angry people in this country for a lot of reasons. Before Trump, it was the loss of manufacturing jobs and the collapse of these small towns and the opioid crisis. And Trump was addressing that in many different ways. Whether he solved those problems is another question. Now, with the COVID lockdown, a lot of this is being revived, and people are angry. And they're especially mad now that the president they supported, after 74 million votes, loses. But they're particularly mad that there's a bunch of signed, sworn affidavits of impropriety, and it should be adjudicated. And there's weird mathematical anomalies and questions that want to be raised. All of these things need to be presented. Now, here's the thing. They talk about in the media, oh, it went to court. These things were in court and they were all shot down by the judges. Well, not on the merits, right? On procedure. Here's the problem. You actually had advocates in the Senate. They called them the Dirty Dozen because the media was insulting them. The Republicans who said, we are going to go through the evidence. It was your chance to have the evidence presented in the joint session.
Exactly.
And what happened? They broke the doors in. They evacuated. And that was it.
That's what makes zero sense. It makes no sense. They were supposed to have their time for the whole country to be watching.
The TV was
we
on.
were all watching this.
CNN was on, and they were counting the votes, and they were playing what the Republicans had to say. And I was like, this is it. The chance for the American people to hear the argument. And then they evacuated, shut it down, and that was it. And then nobody was watching.
And I was really interested on what Josh Hawley was going to come out and say, because I was actually shocked that he came out and was like, I'm going to eject. So I'm like, okay, this is one of the more rising stars of the Republican Party. He's come out and just set himself as a populist. He also kind of set himself apart by like working with Bernie Sanders on the 2K stimulus check. But once he came out and said, okay, this is going to get interesting, then Ted Cruz followed. But like you said, everyone is now jumping ship. Loeffler ended up rescinding her objection as well, and it's going all downhill real fast for the Trump administration.
What's the reconciliation, though? Is there just none? I mean...
Oh, well, you got like Ted Cruz saying, let's put the anger aside and come together. But they don't want it. CNN clearly doesn't want it. AOC doesn't want it. Cenk Uygur doesn't want it. They don't want it. They do not want peace. And so the problem is what they don't realize, or they do, I don't know, when they point to like this QAnon Viking guy, this is not the majority of Americans, let alone Trump's base or the Republican Party. It's just there are fringe people. I really don't like it when the conservatives say that Antifa is the Democratic Party. And I'm like, come on.
Agreed.
They hate Joe Biden.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But they do think it's easier to overthrow a feeble old man than a fascist. That's what they've been saying on social media. But they don't like Joe Biden. No. And so I've even been saying like now Antifa and the Trump supporters are against the establishment, right? But when you get the high-profile leftists claiming that every person who voted for Trump is like a QAnon person, and that's what they do, you're creating very serious problems. And so they're like, we don't want to unify with these Q crazy people. And it's like, okay, what about like the middle-aged suburban housewife who isn't all that political and just voted Republican for the sake of Republican? You're going to accuse her of being a cultist? Are you going to blanket everybody in the same group? Well, apparently that's why they don't want to unify. They don't want to be, we can't associate with them. They have a hyper-polarized view of the other. And that's all we get in the media all day, every day is the other is bad, the other is bad.
And I think the one thing that's unique there as well, just in terms of the way that one side is viewed from the other. I don't think that, I think that the right might often say in media, you know, that the left is acting in bad faith, but they'll never really like say you're ignorant or you're stupid or you're somehow smart enough to stand on the same plane as me. But having worked at NBC and then worked at the Daily Caller and for Mark Levin, I mean, that's a very real thing. And I think it's really, 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 really hard until you're on that side and you experience it.
We've got some partially breaking news from the past hour. Shamari Stone of NBC says, breaking, I'm outside the U.S. Capitol. A police officer just walked by with a flashlight, shined it in our parked SUV and other parked cars. Many officers holding assault rifles run down Constitution Avenue. An officer just told me you might want to clear the area. Now, I'm going to issue a correction for Shamari. I don't believe they use assault rifles, do they? Or actually, they're police. They might actually have selective fire on these things, right?
Yeah, they have fully auto usually.
So they're assault rifles, absolutely. Okay, so
it depends on the cop, but in DC, they have TAC police that are
with full auto. So these are actual assault rifles. Okay, so that's my bad. He says again, a U.S. Capitol police officer just told me, sir, this is an emergency situation. Clear the area. Police hold assault rifles and search cars.
Well, I want to just mention too, Tim, before me and Richie got over here, one of our reporters for the Daily Caller was actually shooting some B-roll at the Capitol, and he let us know after 40 minutes that he was on the ground that he was cleared away from the Capitol because they were searching for, I believe, a second bomb. Right, Rich?
Just right now tonight.
No, this is earlier today. Yeah. This was at
a few hours ago,
maybe 3 p.m.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that was we I forgot to mention that as soon as we got in the show, but yeah, that happened earlier today. We had a Daily Caller reporter on the ground there.
Well, I don't know what's going on now. Something's happening. I can't really find anything, but we'll keep looking.
Just keep an eye on it. Yeah.
This is becoming the breaking news show, Tim.
Yeah. No. Right.
Well, it happens. It happens.
Well,
that's good.
It's important to cover these events. Now, another thing I wanted to add on your comments about the fringe, Tim, is that the fringe is only going to grow because of censorship. More censorship, more people will go on the fringe. And the mainstream media now saying we need to ban them more, we need to censor them more, is going to have the opposite effect. People need to realize that. And another thing to kind of really kind of consider here is the copycat effect. Because we were just talking about mob mentality. I think this is also something important to consider, especially how the media many times helps kind of spur on mayhem, especially with their coverage of mass shooting events. And this has been criticized many times through many scientific studies showing how highlighting and glorifying a shooter during a big national event only creates copycat shooters. The mainstream media knows about this. The scientists know about this. Anyone paying attention knows about this. But yet, if we want to reduce harm, you're not going to create more fringe people. You're going to actually address real issues like the copycat effect that no one really wants to even have a legitimate conversation about, that legitimately causes pain and suffering.
You know what's really funny is Andrew Yang had some tweets where he said that media polarization is causing this problem. He talks about the issues that have led to the hyperpolarization, and then he says partisan media, and then he puts in parentheses Fox. And a lot of people were like, why did you need to do that? You should not have done that. He's right. I think Fox plays into it. I think CNN plays into it. I think MSNBC plays into it. There's just, 10 news outlets for every one Fox. You know
exactly.
What I mean? But regardless, when you get that, it creates a problem. I've even self-reflected on my own content where I'm often critical of the Democrats, and I'll say it right now. I can sit here and say, the tribalism is all bad, and I'm heavily criticizing AOC. How do you get past that? I don't think it's possible. If Ted Cruz says we need peace, I say, thank you, Ted Cruz. When AOC says no peace, expulsion, I say, okay, that's a problem.
That's exactly my point, which is that if you wanted to have somebody on this show who was, left of center, it would be much harder than I presume.
Of course.
And that is exactly what I'm talking about, which is he's beneath me because he thinks this, because whatever, he's not establishment, legacy, whatever. He doesn't work for the New York Times.
It's just absolutism. It's authoritarianism.
Well, it's pushing the humanism, and the algorithm also specifically on Twitter promotes it. Whenever you dunk on somebody or insult someone, the algorithm is done in a way where more people see that particular post, more people engage in that particular post, and you're seeing more followers, more likes, more hearts, especially the more divisive you are. And we have to also, legitimately point the finger at big tech social media companies that have been benefiting off of this tribalism warfare that they've been breeding. They are partially responsible for it, and there's a lot of people talking about all these conspiracies, but this is something legitimately that we should worry about, that we should consider on a big level, because these are the ingredients that created this situation. these ingredients are only being added. They're not being subtracted. This big
Oh, yeah.
pile of crap, family-friendly show here, but this big stinking peanut-filled piece of crap is there because of specific ingredients that are in there that could be addressed, but they're not. Even simple conversations about them are censored online. And again, we're never going to deal with it if we don't have free speech.
It's easier for Mark Zuckerberg to ban Trump and then say, oh, it's for your own good, when in reality, he's just saying, I'm more scared of the left than the right. So one of the biggest, you look at the things that led to Trump's victory. You look at the things now that are leading to the anger, and one of which has been censorship for some time. People not being allowed to have a voice. When you take away people's even ability to argue with you, well, then they snap and they get angry. And so that was a driving factor. And Facebook and Twitter and YouTube and Twitch and Snapchat, all these different platforms are like, let's spray down we got this big old pile of crap. As Luke said, they opened up a sewer line. Like, don't worry, we're solving it. We're cleaning it up. And you're like, dude, you're just filling it up with. You're filling it up, man. Thanks for checking out this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. We do the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. So come back to check us out when we go live. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, hit the notification bell. And we are also available on all podcast platforms for free if you want to listen to us there. Thanks for hanging out, and we will see you all next time.